My name is Chan, and I'm here with you today presenting my final project for Materia Medica. Just to give you a little information about me, so I just started the Herbal Studies program. I'm actually really into gardening, really into herbs. You can kind of see some of my basil and other herbs in the background there, though. This is my second trimester, and I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh in 2012. So go Panthers. All right, well, I'm going to get started with my presentation, but I just wanted to formally introduce myself since I've seen so many in class, and it's great to meet all of you. So let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so that was a little bit about me. Now let's talk about my client. So he is a 22-year-old college student in overall good health. However, he does suffer from acne, and that acne started during puberty and unfortunately continues into this day. But he does have acne in a lot of different areas, like his face, his back, shoulders, and he has scars to prove it. He did take a lot of over-the-counter medications to hopefully correct those issues. Unfortunately, those didn't work for him, so he did end up having to go to the doctor, who prescribed him an antibiotic topical gel of 10 milligrams clindamycin phosphate. So he's been taking that for a while, and luckily his breakouts did cease. However, he does feel he is too dependent on that medication. He doesn't want to have to make those trips every few months to see his doctor and then get refills. So he's come to me hoping for some other alternative natural solution. So let's talk about the treatment. So for treatment, I thought the best option would be to go ahead and create a cream or lotion comprised of the following herbs. So I hand selected these ones, but they are calendula, peppermint, St. John's wort, witch hazel, and reishi. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of those. Calendula. So the scientific name is Calendula officinalis. The energetics of this herb are, again, drying and cooling, but it is used externally for wounds, and it effectively keeps them clean, facilitates healing, prevents infection. Gladstar also recommends it for things like inflammation, for those puffy, red, swollen type of wounds. So that'll be very helpful for treating acne. So it'll be helpful for me today. But some of the key constituents include calendulin, carotenoids, flavonoids, some triterpene saponins, bitters, and resins. But all of these, again, lend to calendula's effective use externally. It also will potentially aid in fighting that acne inflammation, which is what I'm going for today. Peppermint. So peppermint, the scientific name is Mentha piperita. Some common names include mint, menta, mentha, menth, and the parts used are the leaves, which are what I'm using in my preparation. I actually harvested this one from my garden. But the energetics for peppermint that include that it is aromatic, sweet, dispersing, drying, warming, and cooling. And it is used internally for the treatment of digestive disruptions, colds, upset stomachs, but I'll be using it externally due to its drying capabilities. So that'll be really helpful. There are actually some products on the market that use it externally as well. You may be familiar with some of those menthol-based products, so that's where I will be using it today. But some of the key constituents include those volatile oils, such as menthol and menthone, those flavonoids, as well as their mono and triterpenes, choline and inositol. So all of these lend to peppermint's aromatic, drying type capabilities, which will be very useful for drying out the skin when it comes to treating that acne to prevent infection and other bacteria buildup. So St. John's wort, the scientific name is Hypericum perforatum. You can see some of the common names there, including Hypericum and goatweed. The parts used include those flowering tops and leaves, which I will be using today. I have dry herb from Star West Botanicals, so that's actually where I got this herb and will be using. The energetics are cold, bitter, and astringent, which will be very helpful today for that external application. Again, St. John's wort is a vulnerary. It's an anti-inflammatory. It has antimicrobial and anti-neoplastic and antiviral types of properties. So that will be helpful for that acne inflammation. It also does have quite a few phytochemicals that are useful, like the hypericin, the pseudohypericin, the hyperforin, some flavonoids, tannins, phenolic acids, volatile oils. All of these, again, are helpful, very helpful for those antidepressant properties, but it also does make it effective externally for treating inflammation, open wounds. So those antimicrobial type properties will be helpful for fighting that acne and more, again, calling on that astringency to dry out the skin. So that's St. John's wort. So witch hazel, and this one has a scientific name of Hamamelis virginiana. But this one I actually used off the optional herbs list, so we didn't go over this one in class. Some common names include the spotted alder, snapping hazelnut, and the parts used would be those twigs, leaves, and bark. So a very useful herb, has a lot of useful parts. Some of the energetics include that it is cold, it's bitter, astringent, so very similar to the other herbs I've called on for those properties. But it is an astringent, it's anti-inflammatory, it is also a tonic, a sedative when used internally, and it's also used for its soothing properties for cuts, bruises, insect bites, and other skin irritations and inflammations. So I think this one will be very helpful today in treating that acne. But some of the major phytochemicals are essentially those tannins. So between the dried leaves and the bark, there's a mixture of different types of tannins, which lend to its bitter taste, its bitter type odor, which is slight. But it also does have astragalin, some choline, some camphorol, some phenol as well along those active constituents among that list. So those astringent characteristics of witch hazel, I'm hoping, will assist in drying out the acne-infected areas and inhibiting the bacteria buildup, leading to those outward signs of irritation and inflammation. And reishi, which has a scientific name of Ganoderma lucidum. Some common names include reishi, Ganoderma, and lingzi, one of the common ones from TCM. The parts used include the mushroom top, and I use this in powder form for my preparation. But the energetics are slightly bitter, warming, and sometimes neutral. But the odor is a bit fungus-like, a bit musty, and sort of that way in taste as well. So reishi is, again, that cure-all as it's considered. It is an adaptogen, so it has tonifying effects. It enhances vital energy. It's strengthening. It has some anti-aging effects as well. And some of the key constituents include those polysaccharides, triterpenes, germanium. We also have adenosine. I mean, there's quite a few. That list is quite extensive. But again, lending to its cure-all. I will be using this to kind of graft together all the different herbs that I've created today. And because it is a mushroom, it is a fungus, I'm hoping that it'll help mimic sort of that antibiotic topical treatment the patient is currently utilizing. So that wraps up the herbs that I used. Now for the ingredients and method. So you can see some of the materials that I used there. Some of the carrier oils I used for the calendula and peppermint oil. So I used safflower and olive oils for those, which I had prepared. I had those macerating for a month beforehand. I also, again, used witch hazel and St. John's in a decoction, which I had beeswax as my hardening agent, and then reishi, that powder, was emulsified in that cream. So again, creating those and then using a hand blender to create my cream. So you can see the process there, some of the ingredients that I used. These are just some images of that process as I was going through it, blending it in, creating it, heating up the oil, and you can see my final product at that top picture towards the right there. So I was actually a little surprised. I thought the oil would turn out maybe a bit green from the peppermint oil, but actually it turned out very kind of mocha colored from the reishi and from that calendula oil in St. John's and witch hazel. So it turned out to be a little brown, very good consistency as well. So I recommended that the client go ahead and stop using his antibiotic cream, that clindamycin, a few days before, starting with this cream that I created. And I recommended that he apply 3 times daily for the first 10 days to all those surfaces. So again, his face, his neck, his back and shoulders and arms, and then lowered that down to 2 times daily for 10 days. So that was the treatment outline for him. That's what I recommended. Okay, so now some time for some reflections on my project. But I'm happy to report that I did speak with the patient after him going through the prescribed treatment time frame. He was happy to report that the cream seemed to work for him, so his acne didn't get worse. It was kind of abated in that sense. So very happy, very successful with that. I was very pleased, and he seemed happy with that as well. However, just a few things I'd like to note about it, kind of things that he told me, some feedback that I got. First, that about the consistency. It was a bit oily for him to apply during the day, but it seemed to work really well for him at night. So because the oily kind of consistency was something that he did say, again, it wasn't a total detractor from that lotion, but it is something that could have been different potentially. Maybe I would have used a different kind of oil, maybe one that would absorb a little better for him. I used safflower and olive oil, so the olive oil might have worked pretty well for him, but I could have used maybe all olive oil for this preparation or tried even a different one. So that's something that I'm going to look at exploring a little more in depth. Additionally, the other thing I could do is try making the cream a little different. So I actually emulsified the water into the oil, but I think I could have tried it the other way, maybe the oil into the water. That would have been a little different. So I'd be interested to see how that would turn out. It might be something that I go ahead and experiment with over the next few weeks just to see. As I'm really starting to get into these creams and lotions and making those for myself, I think this would be great information to have for my own herbal practice at some point in the future. But again, all good feedback from him. It seems the herbs I used did work successfully. He thinks he's going to go ahead and continue to use this. He'll probably do a 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off sort of deal. So that way he's using 2 weeks of his prescribed antibiotic from his doctor and then maybe 2 weeks with that lotion. So that way, again, he doesn't really build up that tolerance to those antibiotics. So I think that, again, that was one of the biggest concerns that he had expressed. So again, overall successful. Those were the types of things that I would change. The other thing that I could have done potentially was pair this with some sort of internal application as well. And maybe if we had actually been treating the acne instead of kind of keeping it neutral, like again, it had already been treated by the antibiotics. So all we were focusing on was maintaining that clear skin versus trying to necessarily treat any current inflammation that he had. So I could have paired it potentially with an internal application, as a lot of medications for acne currently do tend to use, either pills or some sort of supplement to maybe an external lotion or cream. So overall, I had so much fun with this project. I've had a blast in this class, and honestly, it's been a pleasure meeting all of you and getting to work with all of you. So I hope I see you in future classes. But this was a great project. This was a great class, and thank you all so much. If you have any questions for me, feel free to post those in the virtual cafe. I'll make sure that I answer for you. But thank you all very much, and have a good one. Take care, everyone.